Week in and week out, month in and month out, people come and sit in my office, and they cough and they sneeze, and some are plainly unwell, and they apologize and express the hope that I don't catch what they've got. And I absolve them from any responsibility, assuring them that I rarely catch it, and I don't. But then, as happened a couple of weeks ago, I did catch it, leaving me wondering why, over all those months preceding, of being in close range with so many people, carrying infections, I somehow escape. And whatever it was and wherever it came from, it suddenly then hit me and knocked me off my game for a week or 10 days. Although such flu bugs are well known worldwide, we know so little about it, about this bug, about their occurrence, about how they relapse on us, they recur, and sometimes in their recurring visit us with even greater disablement than the first episode. And so I'm reminded of that parable of Jesus in which he spoke of an unclean spirit finding a host, then leaving that place, wandering around looking for some other place to settle, but then decides to return to the original place, but brings with it several of its friends, several of its likes. And so the whole upheaval thus caused the second time round is worse than the first. Now, as you heard from the passage from St. Luke's Gospel, the parable of Jesus talks about an unclean spirit. So we quickly dismiss it as irrelevant because we don't carry unclean spirits around with us. But if we realize the unclean spirit is maybe an angry spirit, then we recognize it. If the unclean spirit is some kind of heavy depression, we know it. If the unclean spirit is storing the energies of hate and resentment, we know it. If the unclean spirit means that we may have been carrying for years some unsettled state, some disharmony in our inner spirit, some several layers of residues of past discontent, we know it, and we'd like to be rid of it. Hopefully, we want to get rid of it. So off it goes, looking for somewhere else, somebody else, to make its presence felt. But then it's likely to return, and it brings with it a host of new troubles, additional troubles. We know that negative emotions search for fellow travelers. Daniel Goleman, a psychologist in America, has been long identified as a leader in the field of the psychology of emotions, emotional intelligence, and all those issues. Just relatively recently, he was a major contributor to an international seminar on the ways our mind and our emotions affect our health, affect our immunity, our processes of recovery from illnesses. And the seminar asked such questions. Can the mind heal the body? How does the brain, the immune system, and our emotions, how are they interconnected? Are they interconnected? And what emotions are associated with enhanced well-being? So in this address, I'm going to ask that question and further questions. This in particular, when we have been hurt emotionally, where will we find the right emotional healing? Can we find it? When we've lost the good emotions of life, is it possible to replace them? How do we replace them? When we've lost the excitement for life, when we're running on a flat battery, when things are fairly empty, how do we recharge the battery? How do we refill our empty places? How do we thrive again? So before I go any further, let me return to several points that we took from the scriptures today. They draw attention to several vital processes. The psalm said, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. That way I shall be helped and strengthened, renewed. The epistle exhorted the reader to build inner spiritual strengths, be built into a spiritual temple. Remember, one objective of life is to thrive. How do you thrive? Thrive in the inner spirit. So every now and again I speak of that goal, the psychology of thriving, making a strong buffer against the return of those spirits that undermine or deny the importance of the thriving spirit. My address last time, I focused on the evolution of our emotions, so that we don't get stuck with emotions that fitted an earlier stage, earlier circumstances of our life, but we continue to evolve in our emotional life. Too often we fail to do that, and we keep repeating emotions that were more characteristic of our earlier stages of life. All too quickly we fall back, we regress to those earlier times, earlier moods, earlier circumstances. But now in your present state, present circumstance, what emotions can we encourage to grow so that you can reach out to your fullest maturity? So today in this address, when we've lost touch with our best emotions, what can we do? You probably know that we often say there. We say, well, we've lost. We've lost what we once had, and that's it. Or we struggle on, sometimes complaining, sometimes getting sick, sometimes turning things over and over in a ruminative fashion. Well, in my analysis today, we're going to look at several positions. There are, in fact, many positions. I'm going to name just 4 today. And the first one is what I call the damage and deficit model. Someone has hurt us. Something has hurt us. So we've been damaged, and we live with a deficit. I'll never be the same again. I'm not the person I once was. Now that this has happened, I'm a damaged person. Our mind is damaged. Our memory of it all becomes part of the damaged spirit. So that's the first model I draw your attention to. And we all know it. The damage and deficit model. The second, also well known, I call it the loss and grief model. You've lost a valued relationship. You've lost a precious object. And so you grieve. You become perhaps overwhelmed by your sadness and the grievance of it all. And thus, there we are. And soon we start, those griefs start calling together their friends. Resentment and unforgiveness. Guilt and unforgiveness. Self-punishment and unforgiveness. Despair and unforgiveness. Feelings of helplessness and unforgiveness. So you see, here we are, loss and grief and all these added emotions that come and added to it, like the gospel reading, the parable today. The third one, is what I call the storing and simmering model. You don't know how to get rid of your troubled emotion, so it just sits there. You store it. What do you do with it? It's just there. It's waiting. Now and again you'll let it burst out. Sometimes without noticing the damage it is doing to you. It's a little bit like something simmering in the pot on the stove. It simmers away, and you haven't noticed the damage it's doing to the pot. Similarly with our own emotions, things can just sit there, simmering away, and we don't notice the damage it's doing to our own inner spirit. The fourth one is what I call the emptiness model, the unattended model. The house is unattended. You have no line of defense, no line of resistance. So you're likely to become a welcoming host to everything or anything or to nothing. The emptiness, you're just there, you're empty. Now we can become part of a long-term situation. We become custodians of any one of those models. The damage and deficit model, the loss and grief model, the storage and simmering model, and the emptiness, unattended, unprotected model. We become the custodians of them. We can make any of these our lifetime experiences. They just sit there. Or they can become obsessions that keep recurring, re-entering our sphere. They, like spirits, wandering from place to place, looking for the right place for them to exercise their trouble. Supposing we begin to look at these things differently. Supposing we begin to work at replacing our lost emotions, our troubled emotions, our empty states, with positive replacements. We can leave our negative and empty and angry emotions sit there, claiming as they do their right to be there, or we can put some value on replacing those negative emotions with positive emotions. We know that we can turn off the pathway that we've been on that's leading us to an unsuccessful adaptation. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be talking about the pathways for successful adaptation at our SAGE meeting. We need to do more about this, how to successfully adapt. So we know that we can be on the pathway for unsuccessful adaptation, our failed emotional evolution. But we can also turn onto this different pathway that is more likely to bring good rewards, more likely to bring those rewards that are important to our growth and our well-being. So instead of being continuing custodians of a negative emotions and past damage, unattended emptiness, we can focus on the relevant replacement emotions. Emotions to replace those negative spirits, if you like, the spirit of disharmony and unforgiveness, the spirit of low inspiration. So what are the replacement emotions? They are contained in and highlighted in good moments. I call them Magnolia moments. I'll come back to it. They're contained in good memories. Instead of giving precedence to bad memories, we purposely filter in good memories. We look for good mind states as opposed to troubled mind states that can so easily become our major preoccupations. So what did I mean when I said a Magnolia moment? I have a Magnolia right outside my window at my house. And I had a Magnolia moment the other morning. I was sitting at the breakfast table. And there, just outside the window, was the Magnolia. It sits there with all its twisted, empty winter branches. But the other morning, I looked up. And in the darkness of the winter, it had been preparing its buds. And the other morning, those buds were breaking out into the most colourful array. Every house, I think, every home should have a magnolia, because they remind us, yes, the winter is there. Whatever it may be, your magnolia may be another tree, another plant, whatever. It presents us with the symbols of the magnolia, which says, after every winter, after every negative experience, after every emptiness of life, suddenly, the magnolia, or one of its likes, comes to our notice, provokes us to listen, and says, lift up your hearts. And the psalmist quickly took over for us, didn't it? As it said, I will lift up my eyes. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. See the world differently. And the world is different. So this is part of the replacement issue. Replace the unwelcome spirits with spirits that we can fully welcome. Embrace life transformations as you carefully, systematically take hold of your negative emotions and replace them with positive emotions that are constantly wanting to be your preferred guests. To help us do this, I invite you to renew your awareness of the 7 big factors that are gifts and givens of your personality. I've been down this track before, but for myself, I like to repeat them. Maybe they're worth repeating for you too. The 7 factors. Openness. Openness to be those replacement emotions. If you're not open to them, of course they don't happen. Be part of those good emotions, the emotions of compassion and collaboration, whatever they are, the good, positive emotions. Be expansive. Be affable. Be nice. Search for inspiration. Be part of a good cause. Remember, they all run according to the word oceanic. O for openness. C for the good emotions of compassion and collaboration. E for being expansive. A for being affable and accepting. N for being nice. I for being inspiring and being part of an inspiration. And C for being a contributor to a good cause. But above all today, give high priority to inspiration. Inspiration of people and places, of stories and songs, of moments and memories, of inner strengths and inner images, of what good replacement emotions can do to enhance our spirits and sustain a good spirit into the world. Over decades, religion has been placed too much alongside and amongst the negative emotions of prejudice, resentment, hate, guilt, self-negation. It is an important part of our life that we reposition our religion right in the middle of the positive emotions, replacing the negative emotions with something which is good, a good spirit, the good emotions, replacing emptiness with transforming growth, replacing a colourless existence with the strong signals and symbols of healing and inspiration, replacing our well-learned self-negations with a strong, repetitive self-affirmation. If we do not replace the overloading negative emotions associated with prejudice, destructive habits, with fear and anxiety, then these emotional states establish themselves. They get built into your own system, into your mind and spirit, into your own social fabric. And they refuse to give up. They refuse to be reduced. They refuse to be eradicated. We need replacement emotions stronger than these negatives. Replacement emotions sound rational enough, but in reality, replacement emotions resist They actually resist taking up residence because they have to take on the negative emotions which have been so well learned, so well practiced, and so they become so powerful. So we need to build and rebuild these positive emotions. The scripture said, be built into a spiritual temple. That sounds too ethereal, doesn't it? That sounds too scriptural. That sounds too spiritual up there. What does it say? Build strength into your inner spirit. Build positive inspiration into your inner strength. Build positive emotions of love, of pleasure, of positive anticipation, of joy into the whole fabric of your life, into your health and harmony. Stronger than hostility and aggression, stronger than fear and suspicion, stronger than soul deadness and soul emptiness. Replacement emotions that are protective, that are preventive, that are proactive, and that are very practical. Replacement emotions are conveyed in the scriptures in these injunctions. Let your love grow ever richer and richer in knowledge and insight of every kind. Or take Jesus' words, love your enemies. Replacement emotions need to be studied as vital ingredients of a practical theology, a realistic and worthwhile religion, and a psychology that gives a real contribution to the way you live. So the real satisfactions of religion come not really from your beliefs and the doctrinal details. The real satisfactions of your religion come from, like the real satisfactions that come from therapy, come from these replacement emotions that release us for our growth, release us for our celebration, release us for a much more livable life. And I commend this to you today. Would you please stand? And say with me the Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And the blessing. May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.